Hello friends, welcome to another video. Today we're going to talk about disaster recovery and specifically how we can exercise disaster recovery plans using continuous delivery. If you're interested in things like continuous delivery, software engineering, consider subscribing and don't forget to smash the like button. So let's start with the definition. Disaster recovery is the ability for an organization to recover from a catastrophic event. This event can be generated by nature or by humans. And this can also be internal or external, right? So you may have an employee that deletes accidentally the database or non-accidentally the database. Or you're gonna also have your cloud provider that has a downtime. One entire region is down. It happened many times in all the cloud providers. So how having a plan to recover from this situation is sometimes also a business requirement, especially if you are in a regulated industry. You may have some requirements and some specific guidelines to follow. There are two essential metrics that are generally mentioned when we talk about disaster recovery. These are the RTO and the RPO. RTO is recovery time objective and RPO is recovery point objective. Both these are measured in time and they represent the time you can afford to be down, so the time that goes between the incident occurring and the recovery completed. And the RPO instead is the recovery point objective, and these represent the amount of data that you can lose defined in terms of time. So for example, 5 minutes worth of data we can afford to lose. So that means you need to have a backup every 5 minutes. So these two metrics completely dictate the strategy for your disaster recovery. So now, why disaster recovery and continuous delivery together? So continuous delivery can help with the disaster recovery to exercise the disaster recovery plan. What generally happens with disaster recovery plans is that someone in your organization is going to be appointed responsible and accountable for the disaster recovery plan. So they put down a plan and they pretty much most of the time happens that do an exercise once a year. So this exercise sometimes is not even done properly, it's just a tick box exercise. And the risk with this approach is that when you need the disaster recovery plan to be executed, you may end up in a situation where people that helped you during the exercise are not part of the company anymore. So for this reason, I think it's important to constantly exercise the disaster recovery plan and try to have it automated as much as possible. Because if you don't do often enough, people tend to forget, and following steps during in a stressful situation is different from following the steps during an exercise. So then how we can leverage continuous delivery for exercising disaster recovery. So let's assume in disaster recovery you may have different scenarios, right? You may have to just recover part of your infrastructure or part of your application. If it's your database, you may have a plan. If it's your entire region, you may have another plan. If it's just your Kubernetes cluster, again, another plan. So for each of these, when you design your pipeline, what you can do for lower environments or for a dedicated environment, you can have some sort of build from scratch that happens weekly on a regular basis, and that's triggered automatically, and every week you get notified of the result of the recovery. This is extremely important because especially when you use tools like Terraform, you may have a situation where for example, you created your VPC years ago and you didn't touch since then. So all the code that you have written in Terraform is probably using a very old version of your provider. And providers with the time may become incompatible with the API. So you may end up in a situation where your code won't run. It will fail simply because the API is not compatible anymore with your code. So in that situation, you have to change your code, migrate to the new version during a disaster recovery situation. So that's why exercising this constantly will highlight these situations where nothing changed. In theory, on paper, everything should work as expected, but something external changed. So you may have again, API changes, cloud provider contracts, and products that are not available anymore. Sometimes with cloud providers, some products get discontinued and they keep supporting them until you have them up and running, but once they go down, you don't have a way to spin them up again. So for all these situations, you're gonna be in serious troubles if you are not able to recover. And if you look at the numbers for disaster recovery, the impact of a disaster in some cases represented the end of a business. So it may be seen as an overkill to continuously exercise disaster recovery. But if you look at the statistics, disasters in some occasions represented the end of an entire business, because they lost the data, they lost the entire value of their company in one go, and they didn't manage to recover. So in my opinion, this is crucial for a business and should not be considered at the end, but should be considered at the beginning, especially when you start building your project. How are you be able to rebootstrap your entire organization? That's essentially what you want to do with the cloud, right? So if you don't need it, you shut it down. If you need it, if you need to scale, you add resources, but you want to have this elasticity. And if you don't constantly test your ability to recreate everything, having everything as code probably is not as useful as you may think. So let me know what you think down in the comments, and see you in the next video. Thank you. Bye bye.